All right. Hopefully this doesn't cut off like it did last time. Keep stressing this machine in ways I shouldn't. So something I was thinking about, in looking at brew pub and expensive burger places around town, like where me and and an ex might have gone at one time to meet up with some friends and laugh about things and blah blah blah. And so I started to think about that, like what people discuss as far as doing things socially, and because I'm mostly basing it on what I see people post about social activity, and but one of the things that I've definitely picked up on is there isn't kind of the young fabulous crowd of local kind of artsy types, the those women in their late teens and early to mid 20s who attract kind of a bevy of dudes around them, or there's those dudes who you'll see around, all the people who work at this place or that place. Something has really hit me where it was like, yeah, there will never be quote unquote friends like the TV show ever again. That's gone. They won't be there for you. And they won't be there for you too. That it started to hit me like, no, men have figured out one of the worst things that they can have is a very, very public relationship that like lots of people know about their relationship with their girlfriend. Lots is posted, lots of social media posts about the relationship. Like young men have learned from watching how women behave now. Oh, that's a very bad sign. That's a bad character trait. This is somebody who's actually likely kind of messed up in a way and a narcissist and is going to mess the relationship up. And there's somebody who I actually like a long time ago, of a young lady that it was one of these people who, and I really thought about it. I'm like, you obviously had it all. You had like the men of this town eating out of your hand. And somehow you totally botched it to the point that like COVID killed the millennial princess sex career. Like COVID killed that. Millennials finally embraced becoming lazy and fat, getting on drugs. You had to be on the left or the right. Women mostly chose the left. So now it's this thing of like, why go to brew pub? Who could you possibly meet at brew pub who isn't like a woman who just can't believe you didn't get the shot because you understood why not to. You clearly understood why this was a bad idea, and she just cannot believe you didn't get the fucking shot. What kind of person are you? Uh-oh. What is that? Oh, I see. They just cut it. So it looks kind of like there's a bunch of deadfall happening, but they actually just... So here's another example of great work by Oregon Public Works. And you immediately see it. As you're walking, you see a break in the trees. It's like, what the fuck is this about? Oh, they made sure to cut the trees under that line. And they are, guarantee you, there is some type of computer program on a tablet that tells them when to check on that. I can guarantee you. They're shockingly good at this. It's sort of one of these things of like, imagine if the public works people could actually oversee like things like the budget. Like if Oregon education worked as well as public works, yeah. But anyway, one of the things actually I wanted to bring up about that, people might be like, oh, that's unfair, blah blah blah. Okay, cannellini. Cannoli is not cannellini, but many generations of people, and people who it's very clear, this is a person who is like old school Oregonian kind of person, they say cannellini. They see the word cannoli and they guess cannellini. There's been a number of things like this that I've encountered that I'm like, okay, it says this right on the sign, but there's it's kind of a refusal to read the sign, which for a long time it just took me. I was like, okay, like maybe there's a kind of mental effort in reading the sign, sorting the information out. But recently I've actually finally had to determine, I think a lot of people just don't read well. So much so, it's work. It's not a glance at a word, and they easily know what the word is. There's a part of their brain that actually has to go through the guessing process of what word they might have just seen. It was just a thought because of all the stuff people bring up about phonics. Asmongold actually kind of brought up the whole thing of people getting more stupid. Things like fluoride and seed oils and vaccines. Actually, what Asmongold doesn't know, vaccine load early in life. That's what it turns out is the deal. People are now, there's absolutely data on it, it turns out, and medicine has been going out of its way to poo-poo this. That there's millions of people that what ends up happening is they're vaccinated so much as an infant that it does something to their fundamental development. And in a way, think about this, what has happened? Just think it through. What is a vaccine? It's an infection that's wounded. So it doesn't infect you completely. It infects you just enough that your body reacts to it. So what this child is under is extreme exposure to lots of diseases, evolutionarily speaking. It doesn't mean vaccines are bad. This means that if you put certain infants, a certain percentage, this will be very, very, very hard on their development. That's all that people are now starting to figure out. We're not going to know much more until we actually have the government sort of make it cool to talk about it. And then think about that one. That the government has to call it cool, has to be like, no, all of you companies, all of you experts, no, all of you got to not mess with these scientists who the government's discussing this with. Because that's what it's about. It's about fucking with people and fucking with their lives until they stop talking. Even you, Asmongold, has now seen this. When it comes to the overweight thing, actually, this is totally true. That far less art, far more jump rope, hacky sack, handball, climbing, fundamentals of really one of the things a lot of people don't get, that right now what we're seeing, you get all these people who do art like crazy. Do we then get this incredible explosion of amazing creativity like nothing ever imagined? No, we don't. We divest in scientific approach to physical education. What do we end up having? People with degeneratively bad physiologies, to the point where full-grown adults in their prime were catching an illness that could not even affect children. This is degenerative. These are people that their system is not at even a normal state for an adult. So something that health-wise, wellness is actually like a field of study. One of the places we get wellness from, oddly enough, it vanished in America in a way and gave way to the 80s get pumped kind of thing, and movie stars getting pumped on the weights and on the drugs. But all this goes back to a much earlier time that influenced the Olympics. I love how the left totally ruined this idea where they're like, oh, it was associated with white supremacy and neo-Nazism. No, it's associated with national competitions. And then this idea of that there's these traditions of physical excellence from different cultures, and that they were kind of competing in this way of, we raise our children to be physically excellent. That's what was going on. This is why the left hates this. Physical excellence in any way is inequality, and it must be crushed, and it's always failure mode. Remember, the left is always failure mode. And you just have to think of what, if I were to think about their critique and I were to apply, I want something to fail in a bad, negative way, but I want it to look like I was the good guy for criticizing it. And that's where you approach it from. Every time, and you will always have the answer. You will always, oh, yes, okay, no, that makes sense, because then that would be inequality, and so there to that. Okay, I because this has been cooking in the back of my mind. Karlin Borisenko popped up on my radar again, because she's really doing the deep analysis of the left, using their own language, using their own lectures, and translating it to everybody. This is what they're really talking about. This is what they really think. This is what they're really saying. But they say it in this way so that you have to use their language. You know, like and that they're not so much talking in a code, but it's that they're masking really a lot in complicated language, and it's so that they can construct a worldview and almost a pseudo-theology of sorts, and the theology of the progressives, you know, and the far left. So something that she got into is this idea of they're always going to revert back to the argument for equality. And so I actually made this comment that I said, what's interesting, because she was talking about Sargon of Akkad, figuring a lot of this out. So I brought up, I was like, while he was studying what a lot of these writings of the left and works of the left and critiquing them, I was like, I got into like, who are these like based orthodox? You know, how is it that they were targeted by the far left? They're always targeted by the far left, and they're so, they, even after being kind of conquered by them, they're so resilient and resisting their ideas. And so, it's wet and cold, and the nut jobs are yelling. Oh yeah, he's yelling. Yeah, and this homeless guy, he's turning around, he's going, yeah, I'm gonna just go this way. Yeah, don't know you. I don't know you. And so, okay, so while Sargon was doing that, I was like, what's the deal? Why are the Orthodox so based? So I started to look into just quotes of Orthodox. And Orthodox saints' quotes are so wonderfully based just to the pith of the human experience, like pow. And so I end up commenting on Karlin's channel, And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, equality. Yeah, and that they want to make it so that there's no hierarchy. And then I'm like, okay. And then she went real fast through it. She like nailed the whole issue with hierarchy. And so I was like, yeah, I have, and I was like, this was so well said, I could only paraphrase it badly. And I was like, it was an Orthodox saint discussing, I think he was post-Soviet Union or around the time of the Bolsheviks or something. So he's criticizing the modern idea of equality. And the saint gets into, he goes, people want to be equal to God. That's all this is. Equality is just that a bunch of mortals want to be equal to God. So then he elaborates on how difficult this would be. And he goes, God is not your counselor. God is not a friend you have tea with. God is not some buddy that you go drinking with. And it said, he goes, God is the ultimate and total commander of all things in the universe, from the movement of the stars to the falling of the mote of dust. It was like that kind of thing. It said he is, grand commander of all spirits and souls in this world and in the unseen world. It was like all things at all times obey his smallest command. He's like, man has nothing. And then it kind of got into the very idea of Christian worship, and this idea of humans are so small, we have nothing else that we can do than beg such a creature so mighty for its constant mercy, because it's so powerful and its will is so great that anything it thinks happens at any moment. And it's like, so all humans can do is and it was really this kind of beautiful way that he, and then kind of, in some way he kind of sealed it with that it's actually a glorious thing to accept your smallness in comparison to God, so that you really understand the order of things, and then you understand what it's like for that which is small compared to you. And I was like, it was one of those, it was that kind of thing. Now, I probably put a lot of thought into it, and I'm not just paraphrasing, but adding. But I was just sitting there like, that's absolutely genius. And nothing about this was philosophical. It was all theology. And you could hear the accent. You could hear, he is the grand commander of all these things in the universe, all things obey his command, and nothing escapes his power.
Wait.
And so it was really a wonderful kind of idea. But this does get into this idea of, this is the glory of hierarchy. That that you are just as responsible as God. That you are my people, I am your God. That then man has to decide what is his, that he should be taken care of. A lot of people don't get, they're just extending this as leftists into a different type of secular worldview, but it's also, you're trying to make the world yours that you have to protect. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just that if you don't do it with this concept of that there's a sacredness, that there's a seen and unseen world, that bad ideas actually affect the universe, without that, it just becomes a secular philosophy that mostly means you're going to kill your neighbors at some point for not following. And so yeah, it doesn't, and that doesn't seem to get violated. That issue does not seem to get violated if it's not done in the name of Jesus. That it seems to end up as a movement that kills I mean, even Islam is like this, that Islam has all of these things that it attaches to itself as all these ideas from Christianity even to the Christ himself and actually, well, no, a dude named Joshua is in their book. There we go. And that's about it. But that the way that so they do it in this name of the strength of a deity but not necessarily the love and responsibility of like a fatherly deity. And so it becomes constantly that no matter what they do, that normal people will behave normally, but they produce constantly rapacious warrior people who every few generations have to usually try to pillage their neighbors. And a religion that almost relies on pillage. I don't know why, but I've got to figure that what wisdom has told me, that it's because it's not in Christ's name, that's why. Yahweh is the good way. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.